Hey guys, thanks for joining us. We have on the line our contributor Rory from SGT Report and our good friend David Morgan, silverinvestor.com, home of the Morgan Report. David, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining us. And Rory's on the line. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing all right.
All right, how you doing over there at dailycoin, what is it, .org?
.org.
Yeah, that's your news site. You're writing some original stuff. That's good to see.
Yes, thank you so much. And my work's being picked up from a lot of really sites that I have a lot of respect for, which is incredibly humbling, and I'm very grateful. And
That's very
spoke
exciting.
to David a few days ago, and I'm grateful for that. I mean, it's just, it's wonderful. And I have to tell you, Sean, that I owe it to you, my friend, because if it wasn't for you giving me a voice, I wouldn't have one.
Thank you. That's nice of you to say. But guess what? Any one of us, anybody listening, can do the same exact thing. If your heart's in the right place and you do a good job, we'll support your work and post it at SGT Report. And one of our favorite folks whose material we post daily is David Morgan. Again, thanks for joining us. How you been?
I've been good, thank you. Other than the silver prices, I've been great.
Yeah, we maybe will title this one the Silver Doldrums, right? It's been hell, really, for those of us who have been believers in the silver story for the past 3 years. Ever since, what was it, May 11th, 2011, the big smackdown, $6 on a Sunday night? Was that right?
I think it was actually about May 1st. I think
1st.
the last high tick, I think, was the 1st of May or just before that. That's what I remember. I'm sure it was earlier than that, earlier than the 11th.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think what we all try to do, David, is focus on the reality of the situation. And we know that the Federal Reserve and Janet Yellen are warning that the debt levels for the United States are quickly becoming, as she says, quote, unsustainable. And, the writing's on the wall. We've been talking about it for a very long time. But if we look at the quantifiable facts, we can look at the work of SRS Rocco and others, and we know that Canadian silver maple demand shattered all records in 2013. With demand off the charts, while this year in 2014, mining production of physical silver from Canada is down 41%. So the reality is people are buying physical precious metals, the smart people. And, what's your take on the reality of the situation?
Well, I'm going to start from the high, which was about 3 years ago. And at that time, silver was really exploding to the upside, and, it rocketed really from 19 to 26. It paused out around 26, and QE2 was announced. And once QE2 was announced, it rocketed from 26 all the way to 48. To get it to come down, the facts are that the commission, the CME, raised margin requirements 4 or 5 times, and then it really got whacked. And looking back on it, I was warning people from about 35 up that if you have to buy silver, please don't buy it all. This market's getting overextended. So as bullish as I was and still am, I saw it going parabolic and probably getting overextended for a while. So once it peaked out and started to come off, I actually stated that anything under $30 would make sense physically. And of course now we're under 20. And I wish, if I could go back in time, I'd say under 25 or probably even say under 20. But the point being is that those type of moves up usually take 2 to 3 years to consolidate and start the bull market trend back up. So we're there. It's been about 3 years. There's nothing magic about this. I'm not a big believer in cycle theory. What I am is very experienced in the silver markets, both fundamentally and technically. And that's, my work. That's what we show, is that we should be coming out of the doldrums now. But as far as the further and most important point, Sean, and that is the physical reality versus the paper paradigm. The paper paradigm has unlimited, infinite quantities of non-realistic silver or gold or any commodity really in the derivatives market that can never be satiated. They can print fake derivatives till hell freezes over and still print more. But the physical reality of people buying maples, eagles, bars, coins, whatever, is the fact. And the other fact is, at these prices, it's not sustainable for most primary silver miners to stay in business. The true cost, and I really dislike this cash cost because it's an accounting methodology, and it's a classification that is reported specifically by the exchange that they want them to report cash costs. This has nothing to do with reality, unfortunately, and most people think cash costs, well, that's what it costs. It takes that much cash to produce an ounce of silver. Far from the truth, the total cost for a primary silver producer is about $22 to $24 an ounce. So at 19 or 20, those type of producers are basically mining at a loss. That can't be sustainable either. So you have a decrease in mining supply, you have an increase in physical demand, at least on the government coin side, and yet the price is stuck here. How long, we don't know. I suspect, as I said earlier, that we've already bottomed. I think the low point has been hit, and I think we're going to see more of the normal summer doldrums, meaning that we're going to probably continue sideways for a few more months, and then I think in the fall we'll start to come up, and I think we'll come up rather significantly, meaning percentage-wise, it could go from like the $20 level to the $26 to $30 level in silver, and gold we would do something similar from the $1,300 level to the $1,600, maybe $1,700 level. So that's what I'm looking for the rest of the year.
I want to ask you about Jeffrey Christian's CPM Group and their 2014 Silver Yearbook. We just reported on this in the latest news brief just the other day, and it's funny to see Jeffrey Christian poke his head up every now and then and try to claim that there is really no investment demand for silver. He's actually, in the latest yearbook, said that in 2013, investment demand for silver was down. Now, this is despite the fact that we just talked about record demand for Canadian silver maples and record demand for American silver eagles. Meanwhile, production, as you just cited, is down and miners are losing money. We can talk about Jeffrey Christian because for those to whom his name is new, I think we need to sort of recount the history and how he came to my attention and woke me up when he really, in front of the CFTC, in a live, I think, Skype-style interview, he admitted to 100-to-1 paper silver and paper gold in the market for every 1 ounce of physical. But what's your overall take on that CPM Silver Yearbook, David?
I will answer your question, but I'll give you some background. I've known Jeff quite a while, and I interviewed Jeff quite some time ago. It was on a website that's no longer viable. It was called the Free Market News Network, and I interviewed Jeff and had him state on record, on film, we filmed it, that it was the 100-to-1 ratio that you just mentioned. I think Jeff, I have a long history with him. In fact, if you go back early on when I was first starting off on the internet and starting to get recognized, one of the people that was very foundational to me was Jim Popov on the Financial Sense News Hour.
Sure. And
I did one or two interviews with Jim, I think just one, perhaps two. And Jim called me up privately and said, this is really so good. It isn't that he didn't believe me, but he wanted proof, and that's understandable. And he said, this sounds too good to be true. And, how can you prove this to me? I said, well, he goes, don't the Wall Street guys know about this? So, well, there's one, I got the CPM Group, and Jeff Christian runs it. Get the CPM Group Silver Survey. And so Jim did, and Jim being Jim got it FedEx the next day, read the whole thing in like one day, called me back like 2 days later and said, this is better than you said. So Jim became a Silver Bull probably at that point in time. I don't want to speak for him, but that's the basic story. Jeff, I think, was a little more factual in the beginning of the silver bull market. He was very open about the 100-to-1 ratio you mentioned. But as time has marched on, and this is my opinion, I think that he has not been as bullish with his numbers. And I think that putting silver coins demand into the fabrication classification is ridiculous. So I'll say that. I mean, I don't like to barrage people, but a fact is a fact. Come on, Jeff, let's be real. Is that really fabrication demand or is that investment demand? It's investment demand. I mean, there's no more investment demand than a coin because coins usually don't come back in the market. They're usually held forever.
Absolutely.
So if there's any tip of the top tip tier of the investment market in silver, it's not 1,000-ounce bars
it's
that
maples
are held by
and eagles.
ETFs. It's maple leaves and it's silver eagles for crying out loud. So I would harp him on that. So I think I answered your question. But
no, you did a nice job. And I just want to give people perspective. It's not as though Jeff Christian is the ultimate boogeyman. Trust me, it's not. I've got no personal vendetta against Jeffrey Christian. My personal vendetta would be against people like Jack Lew. Let's see, who else? Jamie Dimon, Blythe Masters.
Lloyd Blankfein.
Lloyd Blankfein from Goldman Sachs, the folks over at Deutsche Bank, and the people at the IMF. But Jeffrey Christian, I think, is sort of a willing servant of these people, sort of a minion, if you will. And I just want to go in the Wayback Machine and share this from our friend Bix Weir. Let me read this to you guys, because this cuts to the matter, and it includes Jeffrey Christian, but it does not need to include him, because the fact of the matter is manipulation is manipulation. This is from October of 2013, and Bix wrote, "In a stunning admission last week at the Silver Summit in Spokane, CPM Group's president Jeffrey Christian, a longtime opponent of silver market rigging claims, admitted that the price of silver was being illegally set on the COMEX trading floor. This admission came during his attempt to prove that there was no silver market manipulation taking place. Christian's assertion was that the wild swings in the price of silver were not being caused by rogue market riggers, but by multiple computer algorithms and high-frequency trading programs firing at the same time in the COMEX Silver Exchange based on the same program triggers. Christian claims that the simultaneous nature of these trades springs from all trading houses using the same algorithms they learned in the same colleges. Trading volumes on the COMEX supports this assertion, as the COMEX is on track to trade over 80 billion equivalent ounces of silver derivatives in 2013, which is 1,800 times the amount of registered physical silver in the COMEX inventories, which is 44 million ounces. The point is that what Christian describes is illegal, and the CME Group, who owns the COMEX, should immediately shut down all high-frequency trading. What's interesting about this article that Bix wrote, David, is that high-frequency trading since October 2013, when Bix wrote this article, is front and center now. It's admitted. We know it. We know that it's all a fraud. We know that the trading on a daily basis on the Dow, in the Dow and in the markets, is some 70 or 80% done by computers back and forth as they fleece the middleman, as they fleece us, the average Joe, as they fleece the common investor who's in for, quote-unquote, the long haul. And I think you can make the argument that the same thing is being done to the average Joe who owns physical precious metals. We're being fleeced with this high-frequency trading and with these derivatives.
Yeah, well done, Sean. My compliments to you. You really do your homework, and you really do a great show. I listen to a lot of your shows. I don't get them all, but I get most of them. I want to add on to that slightly. I can't make it any better, but I was actually asked to debate Jeffrey Christian, on BNN. And so, I'm on the manipulation side. He's on the non-manipulation side. And, you can make up your mind who won that. But actually, a fund manager friend of mine that lives in London, very well known in the silver world, said, David, you had him. You just didn't know it. And looking back, I'm a pretty good thinker, but on your feet, it's tough. You don't know how the moderator is going to go. And I'm not making excuses. But Jeff actually said, well, we run the stops. And I should have said, well, what's the difference between manipulation and running the stops? In other words, all these houses know where these stops are set. They're either set mechanically by the algorithms, or they're set by people like me that trade the markets. And I'm an investor primarily. I do trade some. I want to clear it up. All my members know that. And there's lots of reasons to place a stop in there. But running the stops is something that he just kind of blew off like, well, we do that all the time in all the markets. And I had him, but I didn't, just jump right on it. So my friend from London said, David, you really, you could have done better, and I probably could have. But it's not a semantics game. Either the market's manipulated or isn't. One thing that I don't think Jeff really says much about is what they do. And the CPM Group does these studies, and I think they do a pretty decent job. I've always subscribed to it. I mean, there aren't a lot of studies on the silver market. There's two. There's his, and there's one by the Silver Institute produced by GFMS and Philip Clapwick's group, and I know both these guys pretty well. And but Jeff does, what does he do? Over-the-counter derivatives. I mean, they do derivatives for mining companies.
Right.
And they write OTC derivatives. These aren't on the exchange. These are the derivatives out there in Wonderland. So it's not illegal. There's nothing, but he doesn't he's very good at stating XYZ's biased because they sell silver, or XYZ's biased because they sell coins, or they're biased. Well, aren't you biased because you write derivatives?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point, and it kind of gets me back to this idea that we're all being victimized by derivatives. Everybody in this country who is quote-unquote an investor, and it really doesn't matter if you're an investor in paper stocks on Wall Street or if you're an investor in physical precious metals, we're all being victimized by high-frequency trading and the insiders. And I guess my argument would be that I see Jeffrey Christian as an insider because he seems to be one of those guys who is always putting up a wall or a defense. He's defending those who are the manipulators. He's defending the big banks. And I suppose the bottom line is that all you can do when we're under this type of attack, and we're under this type of attack across the board. Our liberties are under attack. The land is under attack. Who owns the land? Is it the BLM or is it ranchers? The Bill of Rights are under attack. The Second Amendment's under attack. Do we have the right to defend ourselves? Do we have the right to own firearms? Apparently in New Jersey, people no longer do. And it just seems like we're under attack from all angles, David. And I've always made the argument that the most libertarian thing you can do monetarily is to divest from this system and get physical precious metals in your pocket, because at least then they can't literally steal them from you. They might be able to fudge the numbers in the market day to day and throw, tons and tons of paper at it, but they literally can't steal the physical from your pocket. And I guess at the end of the day, it's a little bit like owning a firearm, right? It's your last defense against an intruder. It's the last defense against the fall of the dollar, is to have some physical precious metals in your pocket. I guess I'd rather have them than not have them, despite all this manipulation.
Well, I agree. Part of the gold silver platform used to be called the honest money movement. You never really hear that anymore. That was kind of when I was a kid. I was still in my 20s when you would hear that terminology. But I agree with you. I also think Greg Hunter makes a great point. Greg Hunter says that there's going to be a day where you either have it or you don't have it.
Right.
Which I think is a very good way to think about it, because these markets are much tighter than most people think, because it's a physical market. Like I said when we started the show, the derivatives could be manufactured ad infinitum. I mean, you can manufacture any amount. I could sit down here, Sean, while we're doing the show, and I could write a 1 and write zeros behind it and say there's that many ounces of silver. It's my derivative. Do you want to buy it for 0.001 cent? It's just ridiculous when you get to those type of, when you really think it through. And I want to be fair here, because the idea of hedging, the idea of the futures market when it started was legitimate.
For sure.
The idea was, a farmer could, lay off the risk and make sure he's going to make a profit. But we are so far removed from that it doesn't function for its purpose. And that's the point we both want to make. Sean, I'll make one more point here. I'll make several, but if you were a long-term investor in silver and you bought silver in the year 2000 at $5.30 an ounce, and you're holding it to present, which is under $20, you would have made a 9.5% compounded annual rate of return. Mm-hmm. So I'm not trying to belittle the fact that people that bought it at 30 or 35 or even 40 are upside down. What I'm saying is, if you bought right, you bought it early, and you just held it till now, you're still getting almost a 10% compounded return. If you did it later, 2001, and you were able to catch the 460 bottom, you'd have 11.5% compounded annual rate of return today. If you went to the high in 2008, we talked about, you'd have a 23.5% compounded rate of return. So the point is that if you buy and hold, and this market isn't over, the bull market is not over, and I truly believe that. And the reason I can say that with a lot of authority is, until the financial system is corrected one way or the other, either corrects itself or some miracle happens with the legislation and they actually, get some integrity in the system again, which I doubt. But either way that it's right, it's corrected, then you might consider selling your precious metals, or you could sell them, of course, when they are overvalued or fair value, depending on what happens in the future due to what's going to take place and is taking place in the financial system overall. Things just continue to degrade, and yet we just get these rosy pictures out on the mainstream financial press. I forget what you call it, Sean, but they just come up with these ridiculous ideas that the recovery is, happy days are here again, look at, smiley faces, and it's anything but the truth.
Yeah, we'll let Rory here get a word in edgewise, but I agree with you here. The Mockingbird mainstream media is just a hoot. We love it. We realize now, David, I don't know if you knew this, but we just learned recently that the unemployment rate in the country is only 6.3%, which is just fantastic news. That means that anybody who doesn't have a job is just lazy and probably deserves to be unemployed. It's just fantastic. And, with nearly 50 million people on food stamps, I don't even understand why anybody would see any doom and gloom. Really, those people that are on the food stamps, they're getting what they need in the form of food stamps. We'll just keep printing money. Those folks can keep getting their food stamps. There's only 6.3% unemployment. Wait a minute, why are so many people on food stamps if it's 6.3% unemployment? I'm confused.
Yeah.
David, have they been lying to us?
Yeah, unfortunately. It has been It's been quite a ride. I mean, I'm old enough to know when I think there was still some integrity in the system. I think there's integrity in the system up until JFK.
Yeah.
In my view, that was the turning point. He was making the wrongs that were in the system at that time. He saw them and he was correcting them in my very studied view.
I agree.
And look what happened to him.
I absolutely agree with you, and we've often said that, it was Eisenhower too who warned us about the military-industrial complex, which I think is really at the crux of what plagues humanity now, in addition to the banksters. But I really think you can make the argument that the banksters, through their fiat money machine, has bought up the military-industrial complex. They own all the contractors. They own all the lobbyists. So, the $600 billion a year plus that goes to the Pentagon is going into the pockets of the banksters, which are in turn enslaving humanity. So I couldn't agree with you more. And then the one honest last president that we had, yeah, you're right. The last honest president we had was Kennedy, and they blew his head off. And I think that the people that shot him, the people that murdered him, are the same people that are in control today. It's the same families that are in control today. Silence.
I couldn't agree more.
Rory, I know you're concerned, as I am, about the situation in Ukraine. Do you want to take the next question here?
Yeah, and if it's okay, I'd like to bring something to light in regards to silver demand. And Koos Jensen, back on April 7th, April 8th, wrote an article about the India imports, and there was over 6,000 metric tons of silver that were imported into India for 2013. So anybody that says that there wasn't any demand for silver in 2013 is completely out of their mind. And they also imported a poultry 462 metric tons in January of this year. So I guess demand is still down over there. They don't care nothing about it. But Ukraine, David, how do you see Ukraine and Russia and all the rhetoric coming out of the West? How do you see that affecting the precious metals market, or do you see it affecting it at all for the rest of this year and into 2015?
Well, if I could piggyback on that, David, just give you a little bit more to consider. How does the geopolitical turmoil affect the dollar or the euro or the yen? Andy Hoffman keeps telling us that he thinks the yen will be the first currency to hyperinflate. What is your take on the geopolitical turmoil, and how's it going to affect these currencies and precious metals?
Well, my take has been pretty strong and fairly consistent. I wrote in the Morgan Report, and I don't do the geopolitical thing too often. It's not my expertise, but you have to look at it. It involves everything. And I said that there's two main axes of power. There's the Anglo-American Empire, it's commonly referred to, which is the London-based banking system. That's the fractional reserve hypermaniacs, and they have Wall Street under their wing, or vice versa. I think it's London, but it doesn't matter. It's the Anglo-American axis, and that's the U.S. dollar, petrodollar kingdom. And on the other side, you have the BRICS. You have Russia and China primarily, but it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And I don't think they agree. I think there is a very big power play going on between these two entities, the BRICS and the Anglo-American Empire. The Anglo-American Empire has a great deal of military power, and that's how they've preserved the petrodollar, because anyone that has gone against them has ended up dead or invaded. But those days are changing with the Ukraine being a piece in the big puzzle, and Europe getting a lot of its energy from Russia. You notice that they haven't decreased any imports since this Ukraine situation has started. So my view is Ukraine is just a piece of the puzzle. The big game is for the power of world dominance in the financial system, if not in all aspects, but financials one will focus on, and that the Russia-China consortium is not in agreement with the Anglo-American Empire, and the Anglo-American Empire, being as arrogant as they are and as powerful as they have been, past tense, continues to pretend that they still have that much clout and that much power. That's being tested as we speak. And how will it end up? I don't know. But what's interesting in my view is it seems that Putin, and I'm no fan of Russia, believe me, but Putin seems to be much more forthright, much more truthful, much calmer, and much more, let's call him a leader, than anybody else from the West. I mean, he puts the guys from the UK and our hometown to shame when he stands up and says stuff and points out the facts to people.
Yeah, he seems willing to speak from a point of common sense, whereas Obama always requires a teleprompter. And that is one of the things that I do admire about Putin. But, I think there's an argument that can be made, it has been made, that Putin may well be a chess player working toward the same goals as the New World Order. And if that's true, because I agree with what you just said, David, it is seriously 3D chess. It is multi-layered, multi-leveled 3D chess, which is operating at such a level beyond my ability to follow it and comprehend. It's stunning, because if he is truly working on behalf of the New World Order, he is playing his role beautifully. And I would hope that what we're seeing in Russia, I would hope that it's authentic, that it's an authentic defense against the overreach of NATO and the New World Order as they surround Russia. It appears to be authentic, but I've heard many make the argument that it's not authentic and he is actually working towards the same goals. And if that's the case, that is some serious 3D chess.
I'll just chime in and say, Sean, I won't argue that point because I'm just not that well studied in it. And I've studied a fair amount.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, is it real or is it not? We don't know. But it's certainly, it could not be real from the standpoint of what you said, and yet it could get out of hand. The one thing I know about human nature is, one, it can't be predicted, and two, anomalies and randomness does occur. And this could be like, let's set up the end goal as this, but you don't get there. Just think of a football game as a quick analogy. So
that's a good point.
Yeah.
And one of the things that is real also, David and Sean, is that the BRICS collectively have started the BRICS Development Bank. They have also they are working on an alternative to the SWIFT system, which would put them completely outside of the banking cartel, the Western banking cartel, and that started when the United States turned the switch off on Iran, when they flipped the switch in Belgium and locked Iran out of the SWIFT system, blew their currency up. That's when the BRICS got together and said, we're not going to have any part of that. And the BRICS Development Bank is an alternative to the IMF. So as far as what you're saying, Sean, on the New World Order, I think that's exactly what is going on, and that's what I personally have been saying for several months. I mean, I think that Putin is playing his role perfectly, and that's, you have a good cop, bad cop. Obama is this fumbling idiot, and then Putin is this world leader, like you were pointing out, David. He's the only one that looks like a leader and sounds like a leader. And that's what I think is going on. But as far as what's really going on, bricks and mortar is the BRICS Development Bank and the alternative to the SWIFT system. Those are actually in development or in place.
Yeah, that's a good point, Roy. And David, what we do know is true and quantifiable, and we can see it in Koos Jansen's work, David, your work, and others, is that there is a flow of physical precious metals from west to east. Period. Regardless of any discussion of the New World Order, that is what's happening, which I think is going to shake to the core. It ought to have the Western bankers like Rockefeller, Rothschild, and these other oligarchs shaking in their boots.
Well, he who owns the gold makes the rules, and they certainly, if they do start a new financial system, whether it's predicted by the West or not, or they want it that way, who knows? I doubt it, but it's so interesting. I mean, these are, anything that could be said, and this is the understatement of the year, but you cannot say that we aren't living in the most interesting times, I think, ever in history. I mean, it's unbelievable, all the dynamics that are taking place. If I could just digress a moment, it seems to me, from my perspective, that what takes place in a week's time now used to take 2 or 3 months when I was like in my 40s. Things have just seemed to accelerate to a level not only in the financial system, but in the geopolitical front. All the news we get, we're just inundated with the over-information age. It's incredible.
Yeah, even for those of us that are paying attention, it is so incredibly difficult to keep up. And I've been calling it, I've heard others call it the quickening. And I think that is the best description of it. It's the quickening of events. It's the quickening of the collapse. It's the quickening of tyranny. It's the quickening of, and it gets hard to follow. Even when we do a weekly news brief, a recap of the events, and really need to pick and choose what I think are the most important ones to discuss, because there are dozens. And, how do you possibly keep up on all of it? I want to say this. For people who've stuck with us this long in the interview, I think it's important to support those who have offered an alternative voice to the mainstream Mockingbird media. So whereas you have David Morgan offering an alternative voice to Jeffrey Christian, and you've got us here at SGT Report offering an alternative voice to CNN or MSNBC or even Fox News in the corporate media, you need to support those voices, and we sure do appreciate your support. We've never asked for a penny in terms of donations at SGT Report. We do put up advertising. And what I want to do for David is put up an ad for him for the next couple of weeks at no charge to him. And I want to help support David's work and his alternative voice. If you guys have not subscribed to the Morgan Report, please give it a shot. And I think, David, you offer a 30-day free trial, don't you?
Absolutely, we do, yes.
Consider clicking on David's ad there at SGT Report on the right-hand side. Go visit him at the Morgan Report, that's silver-investor.com, and give it a shot. David puts out really high-quality information. Well, David, let me ask you this. What else do you do over there? I know you follow the miners, and it's been one hell of a bad ride for anybody in mining stocks, me among them.
Yeah, well, the miners are certainly where I think you're going to make the most money going forward over the next 3 years. But we also provide a lot of information for free. There's a free e-letter that you can get that just goes through kind of the weekly highlights. We take a question every week. Then I have a YouTube channel, which is called Silver Guru, which files almost all the interviews that we do. And then I also have a Twitter feed, which is at SilverGuru22. And that's for people that used to be in Web 1.0, I call it. And every article that I read that I think has big merit, I'll tweet that out. So if you want to follow what I'm reading, you're not going to see everything I read every day, but you're going to see probably the top 2 or 3 articles that I'm reading to keep abreast of the financial system and the precious metals.
We really appreciate your time. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. I think this has been a really dynamic conversation. Rory, thank you for weighing in as well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening, and we very much appreciate your support at SGT Report. Also, check us out at thelibertymill.com. And do give David a visit over at silver-investor.com. That's the home of the Morgan Report. Give it a shot for the next 30 days. You may find that you love it and you'll want to subscribe. David Morgan, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
talk to you later. Bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, have a great week.